Operation Choke Point wasn't just some internet rumor. It was a deliberate government initiative to cut off entire industries from the banking system. And now, it's being repurposed to take on the crypto world. Senator Elizabeth Warren had always made her position clear, calling crypto an industry built to favor scammers.
But crypto is not an industry with a few scam artists operating around the fringes. Crypto is an industry that is built to favor scammers. And some of the biggest players in our financial system are in on the con. Venture capital, giant hedge funds, and private equity rake in profits from a system that's designed to reward insiders and to defraud mom-and-pop investors.
Operation Choke Point was a federal program originally designed to cut off banking access for industries the government viewed as risky, without passing any new laws. Instead of direct legislation, it pressured financial institutions to stop serving these businesses. That same strategy was being reimagined to target crypto. Through regulatory measures like SAB 121, Wells notices, and broader actions from the Federal Reserve, OCC, SEC, and other government agencies, the crypto industry faced growing financial restrictions. It wasn't about establishing clear rules. It was about using a lack of rules to control and limit an entire sector. A prime example of this strategy in action is SAB 121. This controversial accounting rule, issued by the SEC, required publicly traded crypto companies to treat customer digital assets as liabilities on their balance sheets. It was a subtle but powerful move that heavily discouraged participation in the crypto market, without explicitly banning it. Here's Pompliano explaining the implications.
The first thing is, there's this stupid accounting rule called SAB 121. That accounting rule prevents banks from holding digital assets on their balance sheet without counting them as liabilities. If you're a bank, you don't want to custody an asset that counts as a liability. So let's get rid of SAB 121, and the banks are going to hold your Bitcoin. Therefore, that makes it more secure, and likely that will lead to more people doing it.
Even though SAB 121 has since been repealed, it left a significant mark. Now, let's hear from a Bloomberg analyst about how it impacted the industry during its existence.
What SAB 121 did is it said that if you hold in crypto, if you're custodying crypto, think Big Bank of New York Mellon, they custody $50 trillion in assets. They do not have $50 trillion on their balance sheet, but if you're going to custody crypto, you got to put that as a liability. And that means if you're a bank, they have a lot of regulatory requirements. They have to hold regulatory capital. So like the fees they would earn from custodying those assets do not even come close to offsetting the regulatory costs of like holding assets to offset that. So basically what it did is it functionally made it illegal for TradFi institutions to play in the crypto space and custody crypto assets, despite many of these banks wanting to get involved.
Another tactic regulators employed was indirect pressure on financial institutions, making it increasingly difficult for crypto companies to access traditional banking services.
Can I ask you about the Choke Point 2.0, because there's been a lot of debate about it. And the question that I have is, do you genuinely believe that people were being, quote unquote, debanked because they owned crypto at all, or that they were being debanked because they were seen at those banks as a risk of some sort to the bank?
I think what happened is that the regulators, likely cajoled by people like Elizabeth Warren, they started to apply a soft pressure to the banks, and they said, we have concerns about crypto. Vague statements like that, like risk-based statements. And if you're a bank CEO, that's a really hard thing to do. If your regulator tells you to comes in and says, hey, we're uncomfortable with this. And you say, well, is it illegal? And they say, no, we're just uncomfortable with it. I mean, it's really hard for them to stand up to their regulator. And so that kind of soft pressure, which was really unlawful in my view, was what was happening.
As Brian Armstrong pointed out, this soft pressure from regulators created an environment where banks became reluctant to work with the crypto industry. This so-called soft pressure wasn't just frustrating for banks and crypto firms. It raised questions about whether regulators were acting within their authority. In addition to soft pressure, many point to the shutdown of Signature Bank, a major crypto-friendly institution, which occurred shortly after SVB collapsed. Barney Frank, a board member and former congressman, stated that Signature was fully solvent at the time and had only experienced $10 billion in withdrawals. He described the shutdown as a deliberate and public anti-crypto warning, rather than a response to any financial instability.
Let me first ask, what have the reverberations been, Kavita, for the crypto industry after the collapse of not only Silvergate, but also SVB, after we heard from people like Barney Frank that that Signature was singled out because of its crypto exposure?
Thanks, Matt, for having me. And I completely agree with Shanali that there has been a systematic approach to choke down any type of off-ramp, on-ramp solution in a regulated way. I completely agree that Signature Bank has been a target and has been a very politicized target because of the crypto community preference.
Beyond these shutdowns, the crypto industry faced a growing wave of enforcement actions that lacked clear guidelines. The SEC began issuing Wells notices to major platforms and major players in the industry.
Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong and other executives speaking out last night about the Wells notice that the company received from the SEC this week. In a Twitter Spaces conversation hosted on Coinbase's account, Armstrong says that the notice wasn't entirely unexpected.
Over a series of 30 meetings over the last 9 months, we came and met with the SEC. We shared every detail of our business. We answered every question. We spent tens of millions of dollars on legal fees, explaining to them everything we could. And they finally said, all right, we're going to schedule a meeting to come back and give you some feedback. We said, great. This was going to be the first feedback that we had gotten from them in 9 months and after 30 meetings. The day before that meeting, they canceled the meeting. We didn't know why. And then a few weeks later, boom, we get served with a Wells notice.
OpenSea disclosed on Wednesday that the NFT marketplace received a notice from the SEC that it intends to pursue an enforcement action. OpenSea CEO Devin Finzer explained on social media platform X that the SEC threatened to sue because the regulator believes that NFTs traded on the platform are securities.
Uniswap just filed an official response to a Wells notice it received from the SEC last month. That letter warned Uniswap that the agency identified potential violations of U.S. securities law.
Next guest is here to talk all things crypto, including his company's battles with the SEC. Joining us is Dave Ripley, CEO of crypto exchange Kraken, and just for viewers, what is the SEC contending?
Well, they're contending that some of the digital assets, cryptocurrencies, actually qualify as securities, and therefore they're traded on.
So you're not registered as
well, yeah. Which of course there's not actually a path to register, but if we look at we serve markets all across the world. Europe, UK, Canada, Australia, US are major markets, and we're active in all of those other markets, and pretty much every single one of them has gone to a place where they've put in some reasonable set of regulations. And we contrast that to here in the US, basically a rogue regulator pursuing this path of regulation by enforcement.
So I saw your post on X yesterday reacting to a judge fining Ripple $125 million after ruling that institutional sales of XRP violated federal securities laws. Now, you called the SEC's request for $2 billion in fines and penalties an absurd demand and wrote that you actually respect that $125 million fine that the court has imposed. How are you feeling about this final outcome to a long and protracted legal battle with the SEC?
We're feeling really good about it. Ripple, when it was first sued by the SEC almost 4 years ago, said that we were going to defend this case not only on our own behalf, but on behalf of the entire crypto industry. This administration, with this SEC under this chair, has clearly taken an anti-crypto stance and has engaged in a war on crypto that's playing out in the courts.
The government was cracking down without providing a transparent regulatory framework. These actions weren't just about compliance. They were forcing the crypto industry to reevaluate its entire approach. A climate where even good actors have been caught in the crossfire. As Coinbase's CEO Brian Armstrong puts it, the lack of clear rules has been used as a weapon.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the dawn of a new day for crypto, and the energy was just palpable throughout the room. You have to remember, I mean, the last 4 years, we really felt like we were being attacked by this administration, and they tried to weaponize the lack of clarity in the rules to, really push back even on the good actors, right? There were some bad actors too, to be fair, but they even really tried to go after the good actors, I think, like us. So the industry is just ready for this new change. They're ready for clear rules, and that's our big push next, is to try to go get some legislation passed in the US to make it even more clear.
The crypto industry has felt the brunt of Operation Choke Point, with banking cutoffs, regulatory scrutiny, and a host of government actions that once sounded like conspiracy theories, but were ultimately proven true. Delayed ETF approvals and aggressive enforcement only added to the pressure. But now, the landscape is changing. The future looks brighter than ever, with growing optimism that clearer regulations will finally unlock crypto's full potential. If you're bullish on crypto, leave a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts on Operation Choke Point in the comments below.